Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your sleepy storyteller, pulling you down the rabbit hole of time, where dreams and memories intertwine. If you enjoy these videos, please tap the like button. It really helps. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep drifting along on your sleepy journey through history. And before we wander down the rabbit hole, share your city and time in the comments. I love imagining our journey threading through every ticking clock. Now, take a moment to find a comfortable resting position. Close your eyes gently, and in your own time, allow yourself to sink into the quiet atmosphere of the past as we begin our slow journey together. The boat rocks beneath me as it cuts across the restless water. Its hull creaks with each push of the oars, a tired sound that mingles with the hiss of the tide against its sides. The morning had been restless, rain falling in fits and bursts, veiling the horizon with shifting curtains of gray. Every squall felt like a test, forcing us onward through sheets of water and gusts of wind. But just as the jagged outline of Krakatoa emerges from the mist, the rain ceases as though commanded by some unseen hand. Clouds part reluctantly, and in their wake, a rainbow arcs across the island, bright, defiant, impossibly beautiful against the backdrop of ruin. Its colors blaze against the sky, rich and unnatural, as though the earth itself is reaching to remind me of what endures after chaos. The oarsman in the stern doesn't look up. His eyes remain fixed on the shoreline, lips pressed into a hard line. For him, this beauty is nothing. For me, it is a haunting paradox, the promise of life framed over the corpse of destruction. The prow grinds against the shore with a gritty scrape. The oarsman says nothing, only gives me a curt nod. I climb down, boots sinking into sand that isn't sand at all, but ash. Fine, gray, shifting like powder. Each step feels unsteady, as though the ground itself is still trembling from the violence that shattered it. The beach is littered with strange debris. Pumice, light as bone, bobs in the shallows before drifting to shore. Blackened trunks of palms lie scattered like fallen spears, their charred ends still faintly warm. Steam seeps from fissures in the earth, curling upward in white ribbons that sting the nose with sulfur. The air is thick, metallic, harsh. Each breath scratches down the throat, laced with the bitter tang of salt and smoke. This is not the clean air of an untouched island paradise. This is the breath of a wounded world. I walk inland, leaving the lapping water behind me. The sun filters weakly through fractured clouds, its light bent and twisted by haze. Palm groves once shaded this stretch, but now only stumps remain, their tops snapped clean or blasted away. The ground is scattered with fragments, clay pots shattered to dust, fish traps warped by heat, remnants of lives erased in minutes. I pause often, not from fatigue, but from awe and unease. Destruction spreads before me like a frozen tide. Pools of rainwater shimmer in strange hues, tinted blue and violet by minerals leached from ash. A grove of ferns lies flattened, their fronds pressed into the mud like fossils waiting to be read. Even ruin has its artistry, sculpted by fire and water. The silence is not silence at all. It hums faintly, like the earth whispering through its wounds. Then it comes, the suffocating weight. At first, it is only a slight heaviness in the chest. I pause, pressing a hand against my sternum, frowning at the odd tightness. But with each step, the air grows thicker, harder to draw. I inhale deeply, and ash scratches the inside of my lungs. My throat seizes. I cough hard, bend double, then try again. The air does not come. Panic grips me. I stagger forward, arms out, searching for clean air where there is none. The world tilts at the edges, colors dimming. My vision blurs as though smeared by smoke. I sink to my knees, gasping like a fish thrown onto land. Each attempt to breathe is a knife, stabbing at the soft tissue of my throat. Is this how they died? The thousands who never escaped. Did the ash take them this way? Did they stumble, collapse, claw at the air, their lungs turning to stone inside their chests? I claw at the ground, my palm brushing across damp cloth, half buried in the ash. It is the ragged remains of a tunic left behind in flight. Desperation drives me. I snatch it up, press it over my mouth, and draw a breath. The fabric filters the ash just enough. The next gasp burns less, though my lungs still ache. I stay crouched, rag pressed tightly, until the dizziness ebbs. My chest rises and falls in shallow, ragged rhythm. Slowly, sight steadies, sound sharpens. My body remembers life. When I stand again, the cloth remains in my hand, my tether to survival. It reeks of damp and smoke, but it grants me breath enough to walk on. I move carefully, wary of every draft of wind that might stir the ash anew. The land shifts as I walk. Black sand crunches underfoot, but just ahead, the soil has hardened into plates of gray rock, warped like frozen waves. Each slab bears scars. Bubbles burst in mid-expansion, cracks traced like veins across its surface. It is as though the earth itself melted, cooled, and shattered in one breath. Among the ruins, remnants of life whisper faintly. A cooking pot lies warped and broken, its rim bent outward as though screaming. A child's toy, a carved bird, rests blackened by flame, its wings snapped. These small relics haunt me more than the broken trees. They remind me that this devastation is not just geological, but human. Whole lives ended in silence, their stories sealed beneath the ash. I climb a low ridge, boots slipping on loose debris, and from the crest, I see the sea again. But this sea is wrong. Where half the island collapsed into the water, the coastline looks torn apart, as though a giant claw raked it from existence. Pumice floats in pale rafts across the waves, drifting slowly outward, carrying fragments of Krakatoa to distant shores. Steam rises where molten stone still kisses the tide, each hiss a sigh of earth cooling too slowly. The sky grows dimmer. The rainbow that greeted me has long since vanished, swallowed by clouds and haze. Ash drifts lazily down again, fine as flour, soft as death's own veil. It gathers in the folds of my coat, sprinkles across my boots, falls into the lines of my hands. I walk on, my breaths shallow, each one a reminder that this island is not finished with its fury. The eruption has ended, but danger lingers. Every fissure, every plume of steam, every gust of ash is a threat still waiting. And yet, beneath the menace, the island holds me. Its silence is vast, its ruin strangely magnetic. To walk here is to walk inside the wound of the world, where fire met ocean and remade the earth. At last, the ridge narrows into a path that leads inland, toward where villages once clung to the slopes. The ash has buried them, but traces remain. Faint outlines, half seen in the gray, beckon me deeper into the story of this island. And so I move forward, cloth pressed to my face, lungs steady once more, stepping from shore into the ghost of a village waiting to be found. The path dips into a shallow valley where the outlines of a village lie buried beneath ash. At first, it looks like nothing more than a scattering of mounds, low humps rising unevenly from the gray plain. But as I draw closer, their shapes sharpen. Walls, half swallowed by ash, beams jutting upward like ribs, roofs collapsed into themselves beneath the weight of volcanic dust. It is here, among these silent ruins, that life once thrived. Chickens would have scratched at the dirt. Children would have raced barefoot across courtyards, laughter skipping like stones across the air. Fishermen's wives would have mended nets, their hands quick and practiced, while smoke from cooking fires curled lazily above the rooftops. Now, all is muffled. No clatter, no voices, no rhythm of life. Only the crunch of my boots through the ash, and the distant hiss of steam rising from unseen fissures. I pause before what remains of a doorway. Only its frame endures, leaning precariously, the lintel blackened by fire. Beyond it lies nothing but a mound of ash, yet I imagine the small room it once enclosed. Mats on the floor, a jar of water, the low hum of a family winding down after the day. The eruption did not only break stone and wood, it erased memory, scattering it like pumice across the sea. The air grows heavier as I linger, ash stirred by faint winds settling across my shoulders and face. My breathing slows, each inhale filtered through the rag of cloth I carry. Around me, the ruins brood. They are not entirely still. Tiny rivulets snake through the ash, water from the morning rains trickling down the slopes, weaving through the remnants like veins of mercury. The ground is saturated, unstable, heavy. At first, I think it is thunder, a low rumble, distant, muffled by ash and cloud. But thunder does not last this long, nor does it grow louder with each breath. The sound deepens, swells, becomes a roar that quakes through my bones. The hillside above the village shifts. A wall of mud, water, and debris peels away from the slope, tearing loose with a violence that defies words. Black slurry churns downward, thick as molten tar, carrying with it uprooted trees, shattered beams, whole slabs of earth. The lahar races, gaining speed, a living avalanche born of water and ash. I stand frozen for a heartbeat too long, caught between awe and terror. The earth beneath my boots trembles, a shuddering pulse that sends fine ash raining from broken walls. Then instinct tears me free. I run. The ground is treacherous, every step sinking into loose ash that drags like quicksand. I stumble, nearly pitching forward, but force myself upright, legs pumping with a desperation I have never known. Behind me, the roar grows deafening. A monstrous voice, rising higher, closer. I glance back once and regret it instantly. The lahar has reached the village. Ash-buried walls vanish in an instant, swept away as though they were sandcastles before a tide. Whole huts collapse into the torrent, beams spinning like matchsticks in the black current. I lunge toward higher ground, scrambling up the side of a ridge. My hands claw at loose earth, fingers raw, boots sliding. The rag slips from my face, and the acrid air scalds my lungs again. My chest heaves, but I cannot stop. The slope itself trembles as the lahar slams against its base. A sound like splitting thunder erupts behind me. A house crushed flat, beams snapping in unison. Then comes another sound, more terrible. The screams of the mountain itself as rocks grind and tear within the flow. The roar presses against my back, urging me forward. I claw my way up, feet slipping, nails raking soil. At last, I crest the ridge, collapsing to my knees. The lahar surges past below, a churning tide of mud and death. Where the village stood moments before, there is only motion, relentless and final. Ash, timber, stone, swallowed whole. The water carries it all, folding history into its current, burying what little remained of lives already erased by fire. I crouch there, chest heaving, ash plastered to my skin with sweat. My eyes sting, not only from the fumes, but from the enormity of what I have seen. The eruption itself was terror enough, but this slow violence days later shows how devastation lingers. Lahars, I remember, can travel for miles, devouring villages, smothering valleys. Even long after an eruption, rain and ash conspire to reshape the land, to turn ruin into burial. Survivors may escape the fire, only to be caught in the mud. Below, the Black River rages on, carving through the valley, filling every hollow, burying the bones of the village under meters of ash and stone. Soon, there will be no trace at all. I press the rag back to my face, drawing shallow, trembling breaths. My body aches from the sprint, my lungs raw, but I am alive. That word alive feels fragile here. Life is not guaranteed on this island. It is borrowed, moment to moment, from a landscape that answers only to itself. For a long time, I stand at the ridge's crest, staring down at the devastation. Silence creeps back slowly, broken only by the distant hiss of steam and the low growl of the lahar fading into the distance. The rainbow that had blessed my arrival feels like a cruel memory now. Its promise of hope dissolves against the reality of this churning black tide. And yet, there is something in the silence that calls me onward. To stop here would be to give myself to despair. to let the weight of ash and mud press me down. But I cannot. The island demands witness. Its story is not finished. I step away from the ridge, legs trembling, and turn inland again. Beyond this valley lies more ruin, more memory, more danger. The path curves toward the slopes where villages once clung, and higher still, toward the broken spine of Krakatoa itself. The afternoon presses close as I continue deeper into the shattered remains of Krakatoa. The rain has eased, leaving the world damp and heavy, the clouds sagging low over the jagged ridges. Puddles gleam in the broken earth, reflecting slices of gray sky like fractured mirrors. My boots crunch against gravel, still slick with moisture. Each step, a reminder that this island, once lush, once alive, has been scoured to its bones. The silence here is uncanny. Only the sea murmurs faintly behind me, its rhythm muffled by the strange density of the air. It feels thick, as though each breath carries weight, as though the very sky leans down to press against my shoulders. And then, faint but unmistakable, I hear it, a hiss. At first, I mistake it for the sound of wind threading through stone, but the air is too still. The hiss comes again, sharp, insistent. I pause, scanning the broken landscape. The ground is mottled with cracks, seams where the earth split under the violence of the eruption. From one of those fissures, steam rises in thin, wavering ribbons, pale and ghostly against the dark rock. I step closer, cautiously. The heat hits me before the sight does. A sudden, suffocating warmth against my face, as if I had opened a furnace door. The steam vents exhale in rhythm, each hiss a reminder that Krakatoa is not dead, only sleeping. The breath of the volcano. The air shifts. Another vent hisses, then another, until it seems the earth around me exhales in unison. The ground trembles faintly underfoot, and more vapor spills upward, thicker now, rolling in translucent waves. I draw my sleeve across my nose, but it is not enough. The sulfurous sting clings to the back of my throat, acrid and bitter. My lungs burn. The air tastes of rot and fire, of minerals forced from the deep places of the world. I stumble backward, but the haze thickens too quickly. My vision blurs. My chest tightens. A dreadful realization grips me. The air here is no longer mine to breathe. It belongs to the volcano. My heart hammers as I drop to my knees, pressing low to the ground, where the air seems fractionally clearer. I drag in shallow gulps, but each breath is heavy, reluctant, as though it resists entering my lungs. A dizziness sweeps over me, turning the horizon into a wavering smear. Suffocation. This is how it comes. Not by fire, not by falling stone, but by breath stolen, by invisible fingers closing around the throat. I collapse forward onto my hands, coughing violently, chest aching as I fight to pull oxygen from an atmosphere that denies me. I think, absurdly, of those who must have suffered the same in the hours after the eruption. Thousands drowned in tsunamis, yes, but others must have fallen where they stood, choked by the invisible shroud of ash and gas. Their lungs burned from the inside, their final cries smothered before they could escape. And walking in the echoes of their deaths, My vision narrows, black creeping at the edges. A survival instinct older than language takes over. I press my face to the damp ground, dragging myself toward a patch of slope where the wind cuts through. The earth scrapes against my palms, the grit biting into my skin. The hiss of the vents is everywhere, a chorus of serpents whispering in triumph. My ears ring, my body rebels, but somehow, I do not know how, I breach the edge of the haze. A faint breeze stirs here, carrying with it the salt of the sea. I gulp it in, desperate, ragged. The air tastes like salvation. I collapse onto my side, chest heaving, sweat mixing with the grit on my face. My throat burns raw, and each cough rakes through me like claws. Slowly, painfully, the dizziness eases. The world returns in fragments, the dull gleam of wet stone, the faint shimmer of heat still rising behind me, the steady thud out of my pulse in my ears. For long moments, I can do nothing but lie there, staring at the sky. The clouds drift lazily, indifferent to my near death. Somewhere high above, the sun breaks through, a shaft of pale gold painting the sea in brief brilliance before vanishing again. I push myself upright, trembling. The vents hiss on, relentless, their breath visible as pale banners twisting into the air. They are warnings, I realize. This island is not safe. It pretends to be silent, but just beneath the surface, it breathes, it seethes. Life here balances on the edge of catastrophe. I rise slowly, wiping the ash from my palms. My knees ache from the stone. My lungs still burn with each breath. But I move forward again. The path climbs slightly, winding along a ridge from which I can see the shoreline below. Even here, steam drifts from cracks in the ground, rising in pale threads that waver and vanish in the damp air. I tread carefully, giving the vents wide berth. Some are no more than whispers. Others hiss like boiling kettles. The ground around them is stained yellow and white with mineral crusts, the earth itself scarred by the chemistry of fire and gas. Nothing grows here, not even moss. It is a sterile wasteland, a place where the planet exudes its own poison. And yet, there is a strange, terrible beauty to it. The vents glow faintly in the shifting light, each exhalation curling upward like incense from the altar of some ancient god. I imagine the island itself as a wounded beast, breathing through its scars, reminding all who trespass that it is not conquered. I pause to look back. The haze drifts over the landscape I crossed moments ago, a pale veil creeping across the ruined ground. If I had lingered longer, I might not have emerged. The thought chills me. Krakatoa is alive, not in the way of forests or villages, but in the deeper sense. Its heart still molten, its lungs still exhaling. To walk here is to trespass upon a body that does not welcome you. Every step is borrowed, every breath a negotiation. I continue onward, skirting another cluster of vents. The air clears slightly as I climb higher, though the sulfur tang clings stubbornly to the back of my throat. My body aches with fatigue, but my spirit is sharpened by survival. I am still here, still walking. The landscape shifts again. The ridge flattens into a plateau where jagged stones jut like broken teeth. Beyond, the remnants of the island stretch in fractured silhouettes, black against the gray sky. I can see the line of the coast, where waves break against cliffs of shattered pumice. Somewhere ahead lies the next chapter of this walk. The ruins of villages buried by ash and mud flows wait in silence, their memory etched into the bones of the island. Already, I can feel the weight of that history pressing closer, a reminder that human lives are as fragile here as the vegetation stripped away by fire and steam. I take one last look at the steaming vents behind me. They hiss softly, endlessly, as though mocking the fragility of lungs like mine. Then I turn toward the path ahead, my boots crunching against the fractured earth, and begin the slow approach to the next shadow of memory that Krakatoa has to offer. The rain has finally given way to a restless calm. As the clouds part, the sun presses down in shimmering waves, and there it is, Krakatoa. I stop at the base of the volcano, boots planted firmly in the damp ash, breath caught not from exertion, but from awe. Up close, it towers like a jagged monument to both creation and ruin. Its flanks rise sharply from the sea, blackened rock gleaming wet from the earlier rain, streaked with hues of rust red and sulfur yellow where minerals seep through cracks. Steam lifts lazily from fissures in the ground, twisting into the air like ghostly fingers. The very earth smells alive here, a pungent cocktail of salt, sulfur, and charred stone. I tilt my head back. The summit is obscured by low-hanging clouds, the mountain's peak vanishing into vapor, as if the heavens themselves have drawn a veil over the place where fire once burst into the sky. It feels impossibly high, but irresistible. The same force that once shattered it in 1883 now calls me upward. To stand here is to confront the raw engine of the earth, to feel the heartbeat of a planet beneath one's feet. I run my hand along a ridge of cooled lava at the base. The surface is rough, sharp, almost metallic in texture. Each edge bears silent testimony to an eruption so violent that it tore islands apart and sent tsunamis racing across oceans. To the untrained eye, it may look like a mountain, just stone. But standing here, so close, it feels less like a mountain and more like the bones of some immense ancient beast, still smoldering from the wounds of battle. With a steady breath, I begin the climb. The lower slopes are treacherous in their own way. The ground shifts beneath me, a patchwork of ash, gravel, and brittle lava rock that crunches and slides with every step. At times, my boots sink ankle deep into soft deposits, remnants of ashfall that settled like gray snow and hardened over years. At other times, I must scramble across jagged outcrops where the rock cuts through my gloves and leaves the faint taste of iron in my mouth when I press them to my lips. Each step is accompanied by a low rumble, not from my body, but from beneath the earth itself. Krakatoa is not silent. It murmurs constantly, a deep vibration that thrums in my bones. Birds are absent. No leaves rustle. The world here is stripped to its bare elements: rock, ash, steam, and silence. broken only by the groan of a restless volcano. I pause to catch my breath. From here, I can see the ocean spread wide and infinite, its surface flecked with sunlight. How many ships once sailed those waters, unaware that a single day in 1883 would rewrite the map of the seas? Walls of water rose higher than palm trees and devoured entire coastlines. Whole villages vanished, and survivors spoke of the sea retreating first, as if inhaling, before crashing back with a force that defied comprehension. Standing here, halfway between sea and sky, I feel suspended in the same breath, waiting for nature's next exhale. The climb grows steeper. The slope pitches forward, demanding hands as well as feet. I haul myself upward, fingers digging into porous rock that crumbles and shifts under my grip. Heat radiates from cracks where steam seeps through, leaving faint burns on my skin when I linger too long. The air thickens with sulfur, acrid and bitter, clinging to my throat. I tie a cloth around my nose and mouth, but still, each inhale stings, each exhale emerges ragged. Yet awe pushes me forward. Here, on the edge of creation, beauty and terror blur. The rock walls shimmer with strange colors. Emerald streaks of copper, ochre veins of iron. Minerals born from the volcano's fury paint its skin in unnatural hues, as if the mountain bleeds rainbows instead of blood. My heart hammers, not just from exertion, but from wonder. At last, I crest a ridge. The summit still looms above, veiled in clouds, but I have reached a plateau where the land levels briefly. Steam rises around me, curling white and hot against the gray. I crouch low, laying a hand against the ground. It is warm, alive, breathing. For a moment, I close my eyes and imagine what it would feel like to stand at the mouth of the earth itself, gazing into the forge where continents are born and destroyed. I cannot see directly into the caldera, not from here, but the sensation is enough. The mountain hums beneath me like a drumbeat, steady and eternal, and I feel impossibly small. The rumble shifts. It is no longer distant, no longer subtle. The ground trembles violently, dust leaping into the air. My first thought is another eruption, but then I hear it, the tearing sound of rock collapsing, like a building crumbling in on itself. The slope above me shudders, and then it begins. A landslide. Rocks the size of oxen shear away, tumbling down with a roar. Gravel and ash loosen underfoot, dragging me into motion whether I want it or not. My body slides helplessly, boots skidding, hands flailing for purchase. The world becomes noise and dust, a hurricane of stone. I slam against a boulder, pain flaring across my ribs, but instinct claws me upward. My hands find jagged stone, tearing skin, but I hold fast as smaller rocks cascade past, striking sparks against one another. The air fills with grit so thick it blinds me. My ears ring with the sound of the earth itself breaking apart. A boulder crashes where I stood seconds before. The ground I clung to splits, threatening to drag me with it. I haul myself higher, desperate, lungs burning, until at last I scramble onto a narrow ledge. My chest heaves, my hands bleed, My throat is raw. The landslide continues below, roaring like a river of stone. I watch as the path I had climbed moments earlier disappears beneath a tide of rock and ash. Had I hesitated, I would be buried there now, another unmarked casualty in a place already littered with them. Silence returns, abrupt and uncanny. Dust settles in heavy clouds, veiling the world in a sepia haze. My body shakes, not just from exertion, but from the brush of death so near. I sit on the ledge, clutching my bleeding hands, staring into the void where the slope once lay. The mountain has spoken, a reminder that I am an intruder here, trespassing on ground that answers only to fire and gravity. Survival feels less like a right and more like a borrowed gift. As my breath steadies, reflection seeps in. The landslide is not just stone in motion, it is memory, echoing the eruption of 1883. Then, too, the mountain collapsed, not in part, but in whole, half the island vanishing into the sea. The collapse was cataclysmic, hurling ash 50 miles high, shaking the earth with the force of thousands of atomic bombs, sending tsunamis racing across the Indian Ocean. More than 36,000 souls were claimed, countless others left homeless, their worlds buried under waves and ash. And now, nearly half a century later, the land still shifts, still threatens, still reminds. I rise slowly, every muscle aching, every nerve raw. The path upward is harder now, broken and unstable, but I push on. Step by step, I climb higher, the summit still hidden, the air still heavy with smoke and steam. Yet I continue, not for conquest, but for understanding. To walk here is to walk in the shadow of power too vast to tame, too wild to measure. Behind me, the scar of the landslide gapes wide, fresh and raw against the mountain's flank. Ahead, more dangers wait, unseen but inevitable. I steady my breath, tighten the cloth across my mouth, and press forward, toward the mouth of fire, and the truths it may yet reveal. The trail tightens as I climb, switchbacks carved into brittle stone that crunches beneath my boots. The higher I go, the more the mountain exhales, gusts of sulfur-laden steam pushing against my face, searing my nostrils, burning my throat. My muscles ache from the ascent, but excitement pulls me forward. After everything, the suffocating ash, the lahars, the landslides, I have reached the shoulders of Krakatoa itself. At last the slope eases, and I find myself standing at a ledge that offers the closest glimpse a living soul can dare. The true rim lies further still, but it is unreachable, too unstable, too steep, cloaked in vapor that swirls like smoke over a battlefield. To attempt it would be suicide. Yet here, at this perch just shy of the summit, I can see enough to understand the power that dwells within. The crater is not a hollow bowl, but a jagged wound. Its edges, black and red with cooling lava, lean inward like fractured teeth. Steam rises in violent bursts, the ground rumbling with each exhalation as though some great beast shifts in restless sleep. My skin prickles with the heat radiating outward. Beads of sweat form instantly, sliding down my temples despite the cool wind sweeping off the sea. The air tastes of iron and rot. I pull a cloth across my mouth and nose, but it does little. Each breath feels shallow, like drawing fire into my lungs. My eyes sting, and I squint through the haze. For a moment, the clouds part, and I glimpse it. A pool of molten rock far below, glowing faintly orange through the vapor, restless and alive. It is not a fire you see. It is a fire you feel, humming through Tian and earth alike. Standing here is like peering into the forge of the world. Creation and destruction mingle in the depths, and time itself seems to bend. I imagine the moment in 1883 when this caldera tore itself apart, when the mountain roared loud enough to be heard 3,000 miles away. What must it have been like to witness the heavens split, to feel the ground dissolve beneath your feet? Survivors said the sky itself turned black. Watching the steam curl from the crater now, I believe them. But awe is edged with danger. The ground beneath me shifts with unsettling tremors, stones clattering down the slope into the unseen abyss. My chest tightens as sulfur fills the air, burning deeper than I can cough away. I step back, heart racing, until the air clears enough to breathe again. This is as close as a man can come to the mouth of Krakatoa and live. I stand a final moment, palms pressed against the jagged rock, feeling the pulse of the volcano. Then I turn and begin my descent. The downward path is no easier than the climb. The slope slides underfoot, gravel shifting in miniature avalanches. Yet with each cautious step, the horizon unfurls. And there, the sea, endless, glittering, impossibly calm. From this height, the ocean looks like a sheet of hammered glass, light playing across its rippled surface. Beautiful, yes, but the beauty conceals its history. For in 1883, when Krakatoa tore itself apart, the ocean rose in fury. I pause on a jutting rock to take in the view. It is easy to imagine the water drawing back, as survivors described, retreating suddenly, exposing reefs and sandbars never meant for human eyes. Then, minutes later, the return. A wall of water, towering higher than the tallest palms, racing toward shore with a speed no man could outrun. They say some waves reached 100 feet. Villages were erased in heartbeats. Ships were carried inland, deposited in rice fields miles from shore. Families clung to trees until the sea ripped them loose. Over 36,000 lives lost, not to fire, but to water. The irony chills me even in the heat. The volcano's fury was amplified not by flame alone, but by the ocean that surrounded it. The sea became the weapon, striking coastlines across Java, Sumatra, and beyond. Even far-off lands felt its reach. Waves crossed the Indian Ocean and touched Africa's shores. And now, the sea lies quiet, its surface brushed with wind, its waves breaking gently on the black sand below. Such calm feels almost mocking, as though the ocean has hidden its rage once more, waiting for another day to reveal it. As I descend further, vegetation returns in stubborn patches, ferns unfurling through cracks, grasses trembling in the breeze. Life insists, even here. Yet the scars remain unmistakable. Charred trunks, bleached stumps, skeletal forests that stand as monuments to fire and flood. I pass a hollow where bones of trees jut upward, stripped white, and sharp. They resemble ribs, as though I am walking through the skeleton of some enormous creature slain by the mountain's wrath. A breeze rises, cooler now, and carries the salt tang of the sea. It eases the sting of sulfur and ash, but it carries memory too. For those who lived through 1883, the scent of the ocean was forever changed. Salt meant not bounty, not life, but ruin. Wreckage carried in with each tide, bodies washed ashore, and reclaimed again. The duality presses on me. The volcano above, the ocean below, fire and water, each capable of creation and destruction, each bound in endless rhythm. Humanity is caught between them, fragile as the sand sliding under my boots. The trail widens at last, and I emerge onto a final outcrop overlooking the shore. From here, the view takes my breath. The volcano towering behind, the sea stretching to infinity ahead, the coastline curving away in both directions. The sand below glows black in the sun, shimmering with flecks of crystal. I kneel, letting the grains run through my fingers. They are sharp, volcanic, tiny remnants of a mountain once whole. So much else was scattered too. Villages, lives, histories, pulverized and swept away. Yet still, the sea persists. Boats cross these waters again. Children play on beaches. Fishermen mend nets. Life has returned, because it must. That is the ocean's paradox. It destroys, but it also renews. I rise and turn inland. The path leads toward a place where memory and ruin converge, where the dead and the living share the same ground. They call it the graveyard of fire, and it waits for me just beyond the next ridge. The path narrows, winding down through scorched gullies and barren stone until it opens into a hollow that hushes even the wind. I step into it slowly, boots crunching on a surface unlike the slopes I've walked before. The ground here is not ash nor sand. It is bone-white coral and volcanic grit, mingled together like the remnants of two worlds, sea and fire, life and death. I have reached the graveyard of fire. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than driftwood scattered across blackened soil. But as my eyes adjust, the shapes sharpen into what they truly are. Ribs, long and curved, jut from the ground like shattered timbers of a shipwreck. Vertebrae lie in crooked chains, bleached and porous, fused with hardened ash. Skulls, some human, some animal, peer from the earth, empty sockets watching the endless horizon. It is as though the eruption froze time mid-breath, pressing bodies into the earth and leaving only their silhouettes for the living to discover. Some skeletons lie twisted together, arms still raised in gestures of futile protection. Others sprawl alone, scattered by waves or mud flows, their final moments written in the angles of their bones. The air here carries no birdsong, no rustle of foliage, only the low whistle of wind threading through hollowed remains. I kneel beside one skeleton, its ribs splayed wide, its skull cracked clean down the center. Around it lie fragments of pottery, shards of what may once have been a cooking vessel. I picture the person who owned it, perhaps a mother stirring rice as the sky turned black. Perhaps a child clutching it in flight before the wave consumed them. The volcano erased their story, but in these fragments, whispers endure. Further along, I find a cluster of remains half buried in volcanic sediment. Their bones overlap, tangled as though clinging to one another at the end. Beside them rests the skeleton of a dog, jaws still parted as if in warning or lament. It strikes me then, not only humans, but entire villages of animals were lost. Livestock, hunting companions, wild creatures alike. The eruption did not discriminate. I press my hand against one rib, brittle under my palm, and grief rises sharp in my chest. These were not nameless figures in history books. They were living souls who laughed, who loved, who built homes and sang songs. Now, they are monuments of silence, a caution etched in calcium and stone. The afternoon light shifts as clouds part, casting the scene in alternating bands of shadow and brilliance. The bones gleam when the sun catches them, then fade to gray when the light retreats. It is as if the earth itself breathes with memory, refusing to let the dead be forgotten. I sit for a moment on a rock, gazing over the expanse. To the west, the sea glimmers, calm and indifferent. It was the sea, after all, that carried the mountain's anger outward, walls of water that swept men and women into oblivion. Standing here, amidst the skeletal chorus, I feel the enormity of that dual assault, fire from above, water from below. To live in such a world is to know how fragile humanity truly is. My thoughts drift to the villages erased, whole communities scoured from maps, children who never grew old, lovers who never reunited, farmers who never returned to their fields. The eruption of 1883 claimed more than lives. It severed legacies, silenced generations before their voices could echo. The bones around me are not only a graveyard, they are a library of unwritten histories. And yet, even in mourning, I sense resilience. Some bones lie entwined, not scattered, proof that even at the end, people clung to one another. Love endured, even in catastrophe. The dog skeleton beside its owners is testament too. Loyalty does not abandon, not even in death. These truths bring a bitter comfort. Destruction is immense, but the human spirit, even in its final gasps, leaves traces of devotion behind. A sudden gust of wind stirs ash into the air, carrying with it the faintest rattle of loose bones. The sound chills me to the marrow, like voices stirring awake. I close my eyes and listen, not to words, but to the silence between them. It is a silence filled with weight, the weight of loss, of memory, of history repeating itself in every corner of the earth where people live on the edge of nature's fury. When I open my eyes again, I rise slowly. The graveyard stretches behind me, but I know its presence will remain long after I leave. These bones are more than relics. They are warnings. Warnings of the fragility of flesh against stone, of the arrogance of man against the earth's immeasurable force. Warnings that tomorrow is never promised, no matter how strong our walls or how deep our roots. As I walk onward, the horizon dips, and the sea appears once more. Its surface glimmers with a serenity that feels almost cruel after all I've witnessed. Yet I realize it is fitting. Life and death, beauty and terror, calm and cataclysm, all coexist here. Krakatoa reminds us that the earth is not ours to command. We are only visitors, fleeting as shadows against the glow of magma. The sun lowers, staining the sea with copper light. I take one last look back toward the graveyard of fire, its bones pale against the dark earth, and feel my chest tighten with reverence. To walk here is to mourn, but also to remember, to ensure that those lost are not reduced to footnotes. Rest easy, friends. The rabbit hole of time holds many more slow steps. Until we meet again, Silas is signing off.